Hey guys, thanks for joining me for Draw My Life. This is Little Zazzle here, and I'm gonna take a sip of coffee as we get started. I was born December 14th, 1987 to my dad, Eugene, and my mom, Judy. I had two older sisters, Catherine, who is 12 years older, and Mary, who is 2 years older. I was born in Vicenza, Italy, and my dad was stationed in Aviano, which is where we lived, because my dad served in the Air Force. That's probably why I have a love for the Italian culture, the food, especially the music. My favorite band is actually from there, and I even love the language. Arrivederci. My dad served in the Air Force for 20 years. In 1990, we moved to San Antonio, Texas, which is the last place where my dad served. One day, I had choked on this piece of candy and it got stuck and I was throwing up everywhere, and my parents had to take me to the emergency room. After swallowing this pink stuff, it finally slid down. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't be able to talk and sing the way I'd love to do now. That Christmas, I got a microphone, and I was so excited. I would perform in front of my family all of the time. I would constantly make up songs like Monies and Dollars or Curtsy to Mama, and my mom would always film it with our VHS camera. Probably why I fell in love with being in front of the camera. My mom filmed me all the time, and I hated it when my sister got the attention, like when I would steal her son. My parents were basically the first family vloggers, in my opinion. We would film our lives overseas and send them off to our families, my grandparents and my uncles and aunts and cousins and even friends, so that they could see our family growing. In 1991, we moved from San Antonio to Bastrop, Louisiana, which is where both of my parents grew up, met, and fell in love. In 1997, my family took one of the best family vacations I'll ever remember to Washington, D.C. We got to see the monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and so many other historical places. It's also the first time I flew on an airplane. For as long as I can remember, for all of my life, I grew up in church. I would get up and sing specials in front of the congregation when I wasn't nervous, and usually I was a ball of nerves. I was usually shaking. Eventually, me and my friends in our youth group, we got to lead worship once a month, and we would even pick out the songs. "1999 is about the year that my family started getting involved in our local theater, all thanks to my dad, really. We would be behind the scenes or building the sets, or even on stage. I myself was involved in 13 shows, whether I was backstage or sound, lights, but I was in Grease, I was in High School Musical, Picnic, Cinderella, South Pacific, and even Oklahoma with my dad. I would help my mom build sets, and she still builds sets to this day and is involved at the Rose Theater. That place was my second home, and we built a family there. I really miss that place. Speaking of family, I love our family vacations that we took, and one of my favorites was when we would go to Lums Mountains every summer. It was like our family spot. I would ride horses and we would float down the Buffalo River. In 2002, I started high school. I finally got to join choir, and I did 3 years of it, and I loved it. I even got to take theater classes. So I got to use my acting chops. In 2005, January 17th is a day I will never forget. Coincidentally, in front of our favorite family restaurant right next door to the Rose Theater, an accident happened and we lost my dad. That day is still ingrained in my memory so vividly. And we were all Daddy's little girls. My mom was so strong, even though she had just lost her dad less than 2 months previously. She took care of everything. Had I not had my family, my church family, and my friends, along with my relationship with God, I don't think I could have made it through such a horrible time. I was finally a senior. That April, I was in the Mu Sigma group that had worked all year long to raise money to go to Washington, D.C. and New York City. It was an honor society. And that's where I fell in love with the city, New York. I thought I honestly was going to live there one day. We even got to go see Ground Zero, where the Twin Towers used to be. And that was a breathtaking moment that was just so sad. That same year, I started my YouTube channel, my first one, all because my cousins and I were bored one day and made Harry Potter characters out of sock puppets and recorded it on very low memory. In May, I graduated. I couldn't believe it. I was done with high school. After some disappointment with taking the ACT, which gives me test anxiety, I decided not to go to college. I had eye surgery because my eye muscle was too tight and pulling the eye into the socket and making my eyelid droop. That was painful. My sister Mary had moved to Kentucky to work at a children's home where my youth group used to volunteer at. All of my friends were in college at the time and I wasn't doing anything, and it made me a little depressed. But then I had an idea. I needed a change, so my family and I packed up my stuff and we visited Mary at Christmas time and moving myself at the same time. Next year, I started working at Hope Hill Children's Home with my sister, where I was in maintenance and housekeeping. I would mow the yards, or weed the flower beds, and clean up around in the buildings. That November, I was lucky enough to go see the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City, all because a friend of mine's son was in the parade with Camp Broadway. I saw all the amazing floats and celebrities. The next year, the women in my church decided to go take a trip to New York City, and I got to go for a third time and share the experience with my sister Mary. By this time, I had seen many Broadway shows, such as Phantom of the Opera with my Mu Sigma group. I saw Young Frankenstein, Mary Poppins. I even saw Guys and Dolls with Oliver Platt and Lauren Graham, and a few off-Broadway shows. In 2010, my grandmother had passed away, which meant Mary and I took some time off to go to Louisiana for the funeral. During this time, my sister and I had realized that we were just financially unstable living on our own so far away. So we packed up to go home. I was devastated because I really loved Kentucky and I didn't want to move. But I got to talking to my cousin and she invited me to live with her family because honestly there was nothing for me in Louisiana. Mary lived down the road from my mom. So at Christmas time we made the 14-hour drive and move to Louisiana, where I stayed with Mary for a whole month. Then in 2011, my mom was nice enough to move me out to Texas, to my new home. A week later, I went to the Houston auditions for America's Got Talent, where I sang an Evanescence song after waiting in line for 7 hours to basically audition to audition. I didn't make it. I am still so grateful to my cousin and her family for opening up their home to me to give me a new surrounding and get back on my feet. In March, I started working at our church in the nursery, and then in April, I started working at the movie theater. Through these jobs, I started getting so stressed out that I started doing what I call sleep working, where I would get up in the middle of the night and make drink orders and then realize it was 5:30 in the morning and I would go back to sleep and I was so tired. Even now to this day, I wake up whining or crying from a bad dream or something like that. And in college, I would write lighting cues on my mattress, yell 5 minutes to places. I eventually saved up enough to move into my own apartment, paying my own bills and really adulting. And then later, our church started a program where parents could bring their kids and join them in learning God's words, and I was doing plays every week as the same character for 3 years. In 2012, I started the process of applying for college, which meant I had to take the ACT again. I raised my score up, but it wasn't enough to get in. Then I got a phone call at work, not at the movie theaters. I was a live-out nanny at this point. And I got accepted on probation, which meant I took a lot of classes that didn't count towards my degree. Oh, by the way, I became a theater major. I wouldn't have done anything else. I was so excited. I was learning so many things. The first day, I even auditioned for the musical of the season. It was a show with 9 women about quilting, and it was a musical, and I was so excited to finally be in a show after so long. And I made so many friends. At Lamar University is where I started, and I was nervous because I was a freshman at 24 with 18-year-olds, but I wasn't the only one who was older into school. I took so many amazing theater classes. I learned so much. I took play analysis, I took stage combat and stage makeup. I even got to take dance classes like ballet and tap. And then we had our 3-hour lab, basically, for theater, where we learned lighting and costuming and sets and box office, and I fell in love with the art of building and painting again. And I even had professors who saw potential in me and would tell me over and over that I should think of a career in scenic design, which gave hope to me since I was very skeptical of my talent in acting. I loved being a theater major, but theater was my life. If I wasn't in class, I was in rehearsals, I was at the shop working, or I was learning my lines, or I was stage managing a show. I was just always there doing something. At Christmas break, my sister Mary got married, and Catherine and I were bridesmaids, and I was so happy for her. That spring of 2013, I met my soon-to-be best friend, Chloe, who is also a theater major, who actually has one eye, and she is a blessing to me because we are prayer partners and we still talk to each other to this day. And in May, my other sister Kat got married, and Mary and I were bridesmaids. Later that summer, I got a call from our assistant technical director at the theater who needed help with her company, who's helping a production company at our school, Southeast Texas' own family game show. I got to help build the sets, and then eventually I was asked if I would be the production assistant, where I was in charge of the families and taking them on and off set and staying with them in the green room, making sure they were safe and comfortable. I even lost my voice yelling as an audience member. We filmed all 8 episodes in 2 days. Through this experience, I became good friends with Josh of Joshua Productions, who hired me for my very first local commercial. I was in a commercial for an Italian restaurant. I couldn't believe it, I was on TV. April, my niece Oriana was born. Mary had a baby, and I was now Aunt Becca, also to her newly stepson. In the summer, I started a reality vlog series called Roomies with my roommates and best friends, and this really grew my love on YouTube of making videos and editing. A few of us were hired for a national commercial for Intellivision Flashback. We got to dress up in 80s clothing and play with this video game thing, and it was also shown on ToysRUs.com. Then Chloe and I were part of the Beaumont Emergency Center commercials. We filmed 3 commercials overnight. I was a production assistant and Chloe was a nurse. I would help move around the lights, and I was even an extra on a gurney where Chloe pushed me. I was even an extra on a reshoot for a zombie-themed commercial for Halloween, where it was for getting your flu shot. Then in November, Chloe got to come back as a nurse, and I was a production assistant again, and I even got to help co-write the jingle for the musical one. I sang a jingle that I co-wrote, and my voice was heard on a commercial. I still can't believe it, and I am so blessed for the opportunity. I will never forget that. That December, I decided to do Vlogmas, which was so much fun, and I shot the intro with my friend Tracy, who sang the theme song, and it's still so funny to this day. I wasn't having any luck in the dating scene, so I downloaded a dating app. I never thought I would meet anyone decent. And then I met this guy later on the next year. It wasn't long before we started making plans for our first date at a coffee shop. He was definitely a breath of fresh air. Soon after that, we started seeing each other every day since that first date. And it wasn't long before we got into a relationship. He was a God-fearing man, and I felt blessed to finally meet a nice guy. So that semester we balanced going to school on different campuses and seeing each other whenever we could. Oh, and his name is Alex, and he's a nursing major. Well, later that summer we got some terrible news that his parents had gotten into a bad car accident. So he had to drop out of his summer classes and make the quick decision to move to Arizona and be with his family to help them during this difficult time. We knew that this time would be difficult, but we had talked about it, and neither of us wanted to separate. We knew God's hand was in this whole situation, and we decided to be in a long-distance relationship. I was taking classes online, and I didn't do well, and I wasn't going to get financial aid the next semester, so I dropped out. I saw this as my God moment where I was meant for a change. It's going to be hard saying goodbye to everybody I grew to love in Texas, but I wanted to be with Alex, so I made the huge move from Texas to Arizona, and I documented the whole thing for YouTube called Arizona Adventure. And of course Willow made the trip with me. She's been with me through every state. This move just felt so right. I knew this is where I was meant to be right now. This is where God wanted me to be, and we were both so happy to be reunited. And I'm living where there's mountains, and we go trail running. And I'm concentrating on my YouTube channel to be health and fitness and so much more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining Draw My Life.